Let's get started.
Welcome to MickeyBFresh.com, the new website for Flare Network, Songbird, and the XRP Ledger community for educational content and resources. We have an unprecedented opportunity here in 2023. There's exciting and rapid change coming at a pace that we cannot comprehend. So I've brought together a team of diverse individuals that bring different skills to the website. We have Pragi, who is our amazing smart contract and Solidity developer. And then we have Dip Collector as the team and project manager. And then we have the amazingly talented SynArts as our digital artist. We've also brought together 10 admins from the Mickey B. Fresh Patreon group to help put together additional content in blogs and opinion pieces to really give a scope of what's coming from the Flare network launch and build out, and then the XRP Ledger's explosion that's going to come in 2023 from the build out of a best-in-class platform. Welcome to MickeyBFresh.com. So I'd like to add onto the video that I released last night. There were two things that I left out that I'd like to touch on. And one, many of you mostly know, but I did not mention it, I don't believe, in the video, was the idea that you could provide just XRP for single side liquidity into the AMMs on the XRP ledger. You do not need to provide two assets. So for example, XRP USD, which is probably going to be one of the largest pools on the main XRP ledger, and say XRP BTC, you just need to simply, like staking, just enter XRP. Now it automatically swaps it half into the other asset. Now within different applications that connect to these AMMs, because many of the applications, either it be through XApp or through enterprise applications or through more mainstream applications, will tap into these AMMs for trading purposes. And same will the wallet services that RippleNet is building out for their customers. They're building services so that their customers can offer it to their end retail. So Ripple doesn't necessarily build for retail directly, but their infrastructure and applications and services that they offer, basically just a simple API plugin for these money service providers, fintechs, and other entities, and banks too, allow for the end users to then interact with crypto and easily get the same experience, if not a better experience, than they do on these exchanges. And that's something that I didn't really get into in that video that I'd like to just add on. And then for us, position we're in as early pioneers. And when I mentioned that with lab rats, and that's what we're not, and that's what we don't want to get caught into the habit of thinking we are. We're actually early pioneers. So we have the knowledge and the ability to be able to interact and take advantage early on as those other services are around the ledger, the peripheral, are getting built up. And they'll be on different side chains. Then we'll have AMMs as well. And then you have things on like the root network will have their own AMMs. But they're all tied into that main XRP ledger order book and the DEX. And I did want to clarify what I meant by the trust lines and regulatory clarity. You could only get a trust line with an entity that's the issuer. So every asset except XRP has to be issued on the XRP ledger. Unless it's a trustless gateway like what Flare is trying to do with the Solaris bridge. But let's shelf that for a second. Let's assume it's the regular gateway model. So what they did is they took what like is on Stellar now, they call them anchors, and they knew that, well, that model overall is a great system, but we got to make it so it can handle compliance and it could scale globally. And Arthur Brito actually was the one who said, we need a new account mechanism to scale to the trillions and to 7 billion people. So the idea is to be able to scale. And how do you scale? To abstract out. So to allow everybody to access those liquidity pools so that they can handle, because there's no limit on how much volume can run through it, especially if it's batched in other ways. The volume that runs through it, it's going to find the path with the best liquidity and the lowest price. And there could be different settings that could be implemented on the application side. So our opportunity here is the early dApps that come out and create this DeFi ecosystem is going to be built out fairly rapidly, because the one thing that you always need to build out any DeFi, institutional, enterprise, retail, is liquidity. And they're going to have that. And the compliance is through the trust line. So say you want to provide liquidity or swap through XRP, USD, you are going to need to have a trust line to the issuer of the other asset, not XRP. XRP doesn't have trust lines. It never will. It's the only asset on the ledger that has no counterparty. That's why it's the neutral asset. It's meant to be that on purpose, and it will always remain that. It can't have a pegged price. It will always remain floating because it has no attachments. It's its own value. It's the value of the overall network. So the other asset is going to be an issued asset, even if it's Bitcoin. Say it's standard custodies custodying the Bitcoin, and you could verify it with an audit. You could see exactly how many are there. And that is then issued on the ledger. I'm just taking that as an example, standard custody, as a custodian that would then issue it, and it would represent the amount of Bitcoin in that pool. Now, the assets amounts are always changing, but the real magic is going to be the compliance, because nobody will be able to access the pool if they don't have a trust line. So that trust line then will have a trust set to it where you have to fulfill the requirements of the issuer. And they're building the tools and the libraries. That's the thing. Another thing I didn't really get into deep was that you could see all the things they've added. Python library, JavaScript, Java, C, on top of, let's say, the regular C++ rippled main library. So having this out there allows for a whole wide array of different entities to build different type of applications. Because if it's regular Java, it'll be more for the traditional market to be able to easily build into that. So now you have this compliant pools. Everybody in the pool has to be compliant. The only way there could be a non-compliant pool, which is possible, is if you had two decentralized assets, which would have to be like if, say, a decentralized stablecoin was issued on the Flare and then brought over like RA was supposed to do, is designed to do. And any other asset from Flare, it would be a trustless gateway. So there would be issuer, it would be the smart contract on Flare. That's nobody. So therefore, those two, you wouldn't really need to have any actual authentication or anything with KYC. Now, I don't know how that plays out. Going forward, we'll see. Maybe there's some new tools. They said they're working with zero-knowledge proofs. And I found that really interesting because it's not just the head of research at RippleX that said that. David Schwartz has mentioned it multiple times in his interviews with Thinking Crypto and Tony, who's done fantastic interviews that I've absolutely enjoyed. I think there's 3 on there with David Schwartz, and each time I go through them, there's something in there that there's just gems, like golden nuggets that he explains. Kind of what he's interested in is also what they're looking at. Zero-knowledge proofs is probably one of the most powerful technologies that's been a breakthrough in the last couple of years because it allows for privacy and allows for transparency. And this will allow everybody to participate very easily. And then the other thing that I didn't really touch on to go deeper into this was the idea that a lending market goes hand in hand with this AMM. Now, typically when Ethereum's DeFi market started, it was just built, Ethereum, and then whoever built the DEXs, Uniswap came along, Aave came along, Compound, they just built. They didn't build in collaboration with each other or in coordination. They just happened to be composable over time. And then this built this, that worked with that. Now, if you build the core infrastructure, see, Flare is doing this from the get-go in certain aspects with the F assets and with Layer Cake. And they built the two protocols, State Connector and FTSO, to create a base foundation to where apps don't have to come in and build all the price feeds. They don't have to come in and get all the oracles. It's already set up there for them, if it's probabilistic data or deterministic. Now, XRP, what RippleX could build out is, and this doesn't necessarily have to be on the blockchain, because the F asset system and Layer Cake are not on the blockchain, they're dApps. So I'm not saying they're going to build a lending and borrowing into the protocol, but they could build this kind of ability for that through those gateway models and build a software and the things that would allow for a lending and borrowing model to happen in a decentralized way and be operated by different dApps. So that's a way to build a foundation. Now, I don't know the exact details of that. I came across a couple patents that were connected to Ripple's ODL patent that describe a way that that could be done using these liquidity tokens. I love the words liquidity tokens instead of liquidity pool tokens. Liquidity tokens are just brilliant because it's really just a claim on the assets that are in the pool. It's not a security. It can't ever be any of those things. But what is it backed by? It's backed by the assets in the pool. So now you lower volatility if you use that as collateral. This asset represents, no matter what, there's no counterparty risk. Those two assets, XRP USD, you're always getting back half XRP, half USD, depending on the price of XRP. And they earn fees, but they earn this new thing. And this is what he means by harvesting volatility for yield. And I heard this a few months ago, and it's taken me, some time to really process what that means. And I would like to see them put tests out to see how this compares to something like Uniswap. So instead of the pool being rated by arbitrageurs extracting value, this is going to bring value in. So the arbitrageurs are earning value separate from the pool. They're capturing value based on the price going up or down. So it's not necessarily the pool's volume or anything that's grabbing this value. It's the arbitrageurs, but they're paying for the rights to do that in LP tokens. Now, it's not going to be just like a small portion of that arbitrage. It's going to be a significant portion of that arbitrage, actually, because the XRP ledger is able to have counter offers there right away, ready to go. And they're able to trade with no fees. And that's actually significant when you're talking a lot of volume. So that value is going to come back to the pool. That's what David Schwartz says is the game changer for this design. And it truly can be, because it allows it to be sustainable and it encourages more liquidity. And if you have more liquidity, you could run more volume through it. So there's really no limit there. Yes, they'll hit a point where you'll say, oh, well, institutions are going to capture all the fees and arbitrage. It's only relevant to who's in the pool. Now, if there's a tremendous amount of volume running through that pool, not as many people are going to go in it. They're going to go in somewhere else. So it'll always have a balance, because then there'll be a XRP Euro pool. And if it routes it through there and people make more money in the private liquidity there, they'll provide liquidity there, or through XRP BTC. So they will balance. Then there'll be different fee rates, I believe, on different side chains, because there'll only be most likely one XRP USD pool on the XRP ledger. I don't know how that's going to be implemented. We'll see. But I could have sworn he said at some point that there would only be one pool per pairing. Because if there becomes many pairings, then we just fragment liquidity. But at the same time, it could be competition between fee rates, but then it would be kind of a race to a bottom. So I don't think that's going to happen. So this allows for more value to be captured. So he did say bolstered by incentive programs. Most of the time, when any of those pools in Uniswap are bolstered by something or anything, they're bolstered by either the DApp token or governance token of the network, which is usually new and doesn't have too much other use case besides being a governance token. Or there's some other new token that's the token in the pool that you're getting rewarded for. Now, with XRP, we have this escrow. It's kind of naive to think that the escrow is going to be not used for incentives. That's every single crypto network in crypto uses the native asset in some way, shape, or form to incentivize participation in the network. Just for security, for data, or security of consensus, whatever it is, it's always there to use for the same thing. So there's no reason to think that XRP would not be used for the same thing. It absolutely will be. I can almost 100% guarantee you that. Now, is it going to be the whole escrow? Probably not. But some portion of it will be done through an automated thing. It's not Ripple who's going to do it. It's going to be automated. I don't know how that's going to be designed, but likely it won't be designed in a way where it's going to hurt XRP's price. It's going to be there to actually lift XRP's price indirectly. And this is how you use the additional supply. So there's not an everlasting supply of XRP, right? It's only 100 billion. There's never any more can be created. So with that being known, as the value goes up, you don't need as much incentives. Now, the incentives would have to be designed, which would drive demand and encourage participation from the broader community. That is what's going to boost all this. At least to start, we are the spark that's going to allow the network effects to kick off, because it has to happen. If it doesn't happen and the network effects don't come out, XRP will not be successful, or it won't be nearly as successful as it could be. And if it just was like institutional only enterprise and nobody was using the ledger, it was not being built out. Why do you think they're spending so much time, effort, energy, resources, human capital on building this developer ecosystem platform? Technically, since 2018, they've been building this developer ecosystem. Since they launched the arm, the investment arm with Spring, that started it. Not every project was building on the XRP ledger, but now all these grants, 4 rounds of grants, $1 billion XRP plus a $250 million creator fund. So they have grants for creators. They have grants for devs to build these things. But once the AMMs and sidechains come up, and I go pretty in depth in the video on sidechains for what we need to know now. Remember, this isn't here right now. So that's something important to understand, but it's coming. It's not like, oh, maybe it will come. It might be a year or two. No, it's coming in a few months. So be ready for it. Just like the bear market's going to end and the world's collapsing and FTX, it's calling everything, everyone's calling everything a scam. It's a Ponzi. That's when you know you're at the bottom. But we've been through these multiple times. So you need to start looking ahead to what's going to be there in a few months and mentally prepare for it and gain the knowledge now so that when that comes, you can take advantage of it. And we'll have to make decisions between, well, is it better to mint some XRP or do I stake in the pool? And it's not even just about staking liquidity. Like I said in the video, there'll be ancillary services that will allow you to just lend your XRP. Just lend it and be able to get it back whenever you want. Now, you could do that literally with the liquidity pool tokens or liquidity tokens. I really love that word. I just think it's great. Liquidity tokens. I mean, we talk about on-demand liquidity, liquidity tokens. And it's not a new token somebody made. It's not a security or anything like that. It's not Ripple's made. It just represents the liquidity in the pool. It's a yield-bearing asset that can be used as collateral. And it doesn't have the smart contract risks. and it could always be redeemed. It can be traded. I mean, geez, you could think of things that this could be combined with NFTs and contracts. It could be just, the potential is unlimited once you have that underlying liquidity pipeline where all these pools are connected to each other and then they're connected to the DEX. So you have to think of like an underlying like sewer of a city or subways where they're all intertwined or pipes connecting. And then you have the payment execution. The XRP ledger has built-in functions. It's not just Ripple Net that does this stuff. It's the protocol. The Ripple transaction protocol is built into the XRP ledger. And you have auto bridging and you have pathfinding. So it's going to find the best path for cross-currency payments. The XRP ledger has always inherently been a currency exchange. It's built into the ledger. It's the IP, the intellectual property, that we believe was what Arthur Brito brought to the table, because you could see in court filings, him and Jed had another disagreement, not over the things that has always been made public. This was separate part of the intellectual property that Arthur Brito brought to the XRP ledger. And that was, a lot of it was the pathfinding and the DEX and the ability to trade. It's a matching engine. It does what Coinbase does, but even better. But it limits the high frequency orders. So it can keep track of everyone's account, keeps track of everyone's trust lines, and it's not through smart contracts. It's built into every ledger that closes. It's on there. So it doesn't take up the type of smart contract space. So this is how they're talking about scaling out. Now you save all the smart contracts and the complex computation for the higher upper layers, the layer 2s, the other abstracted areas where you could then add compliance, where they could be centralized or decentralized. Doesn't matter, but the underlying infrastructure is at the blockchain layer. Now, you could think of a sidechain that changes the way the AMMs are done. Like, these sidechains can be customized in different ways to where they have some of the same features, but they add things that could be amendments on the ledger, but they would not get approved by everybody because it's a custom ledger sidechain built for specific purposes. And maybe that could be lending and borrowing. I'm not sure, but it's innovating at the blockchain layer is one thing that we don't have. And David Schwartz explained that. There's things like Substrate and Cosmos SDK, but those are actually, they give you the base layer and you could plug and play some pieces on top. And that's been wildly successful because even though you could build on Substrate and it's not connected to Polkadot, it allows you then to easily connect to Polkadot. Same with Cosmos SDK. Now with the XRP ledgers, you can innovate at the consensus layer, which you can do with those too, but it's a little more difficult. But they're going in that direction to allow for any type of private blockchain, any type of centralized, whatever type you want to make, it's going to be able to be built and then connected to the XRP ledger very easily. And this is where you create this network of networks and you create that, what Raoul Pal says, the Metcalfe's law of just an expanding network. Now, ETH has been the first out the gate to really create that network effects, but it's limited by its core designed technology and infrastructure, even going into ETH 2.0. They have planned designs, but that's going to keep getting pushed back because the technologies are going to come out in 6 months. Every 6 months, like David Schwartz said, new technologies. It's been very hard to keep up with a roadmap that's 10 years, that's already laid out for 10 years when you don't know the technologies that are going to come throughout those 10 years. So this gives RippleX, XRP Ledger, and it's not even just that network. He said it. He said, we need the rest of the industry to grow. We need Ethereum to grow. We need Solana to grow. We need Avalanche to grow because they'll build things and things will be built on top that will be then target markets for XRP or where other side chains will then connect to because they'll work with. And that's what the internet did. So this is Web3. That's what Web3 is. It's not just some asset that's going to be used by banks. I hope everyone gets that, starting to see a little clearer now where this is going. And this is not speculation. This is 100% facts. There's documented evidences of it. You could hear David Schwartz talking about it. You could go to xrpl.org. I highly suggest everyone should go through the courses that are on there, like the introduction to the XRP ledger. It's just a whole quiz thing and a learning experience. And those are on there for just people to get acquainted with it. And there's so many people in the community that don't understand just the basics. And if they had that foundational understanding, they would then be able to speculate and be able to make decisions and talk about things so much better once they had that. Now, we don't need to take the dev. There's one for the developers. If you're not looking to be a developer, you don't need to go that far. I mean, you could go in there, test it. It's a little more technical entailing, but they have these tools. They're building this out to build an open source developer ecosystem, along with their RippleNet side is building the wallets, the trading platform services. So then any payment provider or FX provider can offer a better user experience than an exchange can. So the idea of having these exchanges is probably in like 5 years from now going to be like, look back at like, oh, remember those days when they only had exchanges? Because everyone's going to be able to offer the same front end that an exchange does. So what advantage do they have, really? None, except there'll be a few big ones. Liquidity hubs, where there's a lot of trading going on because they have the actual matching engine. But that can be done behind the scenes by ODL, by Liquidity Hub. Liquidity Hub could go to different OTC order books, wherever they could source liquidity from and plug into these different exchanges and then route the orders through with smart order routing. That's what Ripple is building. It's been the plan for a while. That is the internet of value, is that value exchange. It's not just being siloed on these islands that are off-chain. And we see what that FTX did. That's not going to work. And then we have the institutional infrastructure that's being built by Standard Custody, PolySign, and others. It's not even just them. There's multiple custodial networks being built in these, either they're like layer 2s or they're like what Standard Custody and Atomic Net are, more proprietary, where they're going to allow for institutions to be able to have the best in class custody. You notice how every time they use these words best in class and pedigree, because that's what it's going to take when the institutional DeFi comes. Institutional DeFi is same as what Jack McDonald says when he says we're writing a new operating system for capital markets. DeFi is just financial services and products. Wait till we get to the point where we create new financial products, new financial services, new mechanisms with NFTs. They're going to open up a whole plethora. Right now, we're just replicating. But that's only going to go for so long until then composability and boom, all these other new things are created. And once that takes place, then we're into a whole new world of financial system. And yes, we're going to need fiat, we need stablecoin, CBDCs, but they're playing into that world being developed. Tokenization is not going to happen in a silo. JP Morgan is definitely at the forefront with this. And I actually think that's a good thing because it's going to kick into action all the other entities. So when JP Morgan's pushing, they just bought a wallet for like 800 million. So when RippleNet's like, hey, we got this set up for you right now. Here you go. Plug and play. You got access to full crypto market. You can offer trading services. You get custody. You get everything you need. And as they tap into PolySign with Atomic Net and Standard Custody, it's all right there. They don't have to go and build it. And that's going to be powerful. But there's going to be many players in the ecosystem. But the idea is still then to offer the services to the masses. If we're going to scale to the trillions, and this is going to be mass adoption in a new financial system, it has to be able to get to them and has to do it in a regulated, compliant way. I do not know how the DeFi that exists right now does that. It's not that XRP's DeFi is going to be any more centralized or anything like that, because they're going to keep it still decentralized at the core. But the applications will have this flexibility to be built in many different ways. And this is coming in alongside what they're doing with the institutions and ODL and payments. They're doing treasury payments now. They're appealing to corporates, because what is that? That's more flow going through ODL. That's going to be going through those AMMs and going through the order book, and it could do it compliantly. There's no reason why those payment flows won't. They don't know necessarily where the payment flow goes through. The transaction, all that software is built into Ripple Net. It's been built in there since they built Ripple Connect. Ripple Connect was basically just a back-end software of the Gateway D. So they just expanded the software of gateways. That's what they are. And we're going to have select entities that will be issuers. So no matter what regulations come out for stablecoins or CBDCs, the XRP ledger will be able to adapt to them. If it's a sidechain, if it's right on the ledger, you could do it still in the compliant way because you have that trust line. It hasn't been used to its fullest. And I said that in the video. It's just, we're going to see these network effects, and we have, as a community, are like perfectly situated to ramp that up and then bring in more people, and they will go alongside each other. There'll be like a retail DeFi, early adopter phase, just like there's Bitcoin. And now there's institutions holding it on their balance sheet. This is a little different because it's actual borrowing, lending, trading, and it's actually happening on Ledger, but most of people's user experiences will be abstracted. Even in XDApps with hooks on a sidechain, with X addresses, you could actually, there's some really cool things they could do. It's like the XRP is on the same ledger with the X addresses. You could send right from an exchange or from any other wallet to that X address directly on the sidechain. So that opens up some interesting things. I'm curious if there's going to be like a smart sidechain that has hooks, and then on top of that has like a smart contracting layer 2 that's built explicitly for a variety of smart contracts or custom smart contracts or EVM. But EVM is not necessarily always going to be the standard. So being locked into only EVM could be detrimental long term. And this is why the sidechain model, what they're building, is brilliant. It's going to allow them to spin up very fast. They're going to have a library that's going to allow you to, here you go, plug and play, like WordPress for blockchains. And then you could customize it any way you like. The one thing they do have to figure out is how do you get the validators to have a consensus model that's decentralized. And I think they could do that with what they're building with the witness servers, threshold signatures, zero knowledge proof, and the validators that they have now. But we'll have to see that. It's a conversation as we see this build out more. We'll see that develop and what they release, because it's going to be powerful. After seeing that institutional DeFi paper by SBI, which I'm going to do a dedicated video for, it shows that this isn't going to be some siloed financial market and then parallel with public. They're already looking to combine the two. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. There's going to be tokenization and secure tokens issued on private blockchains at first, and they'll probably be in siloed areas. But that will need network effects. And there will be just institutional, repo markets and things built just for institutions to start. But as DeFi gets more mature and we could do it compliantly, it's all just going to flood in, because that's where the core is. Now, crypto assets don't necessarily have to be used in a tokenization world. It doesn't have to pair. We're not thinking the XRP is going to be paired with stocks and all that. It's a free floating asset. It's not going to have a stable price. It's not going to be pegged to anything. It's not going to be backed by anything. It's backed by the network and the protocol and all of its use cases. That's what drives the demand. But it can be used as that neutral asset. So it will always have that value then. And the more use cases, like Larson said, the more liquidity and the more value. So that's where, if it's the ecosystem that these things can be built on and tap into, and it's got the long tail of the liquidity, if they can make it, it can be paired with actually to XRP, certain assets. And going through that pairing might be the best way to get to liquidity. And as liquidity begets liquidity, Brad Garlinghouse said. And this is exactly that.